CompTIA Cloud Plus Certification Exam Test Prep. Question 1. Evergreen Retail is preparing an update to its seasonal e-commerce site and needs to dedicate the cloud environment to one organization with greater control. Which cloud model is the strongest choice? Option A, hybrid cloud. Option B, private cloud. Option C, platform as a service. Option D, a community cloud. The correct answer is option B, private cloud. A single- organization environment supports customized governance and isolation while retaining cloud operating characteristics. The design decision fits the seasonal e-commerce site because it targets the exact availability, security, deployment, or operational need described. A different choice would be weaker because shared tenancy would conflict with the stated isolation requirement. Question 2. For Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site, the team must send overflow demand from a private environment to public resources. It also wants to avoid a design where building permanent private capacity for rare peaks would be less flexible and more costly. Which architecture pattern offers the most appropriate balance? Option A, high availability. Option B, horizontal scaling. Option C, cloud bursting. Option D, automatic scaling. The correct answer is option C, cloud bursting. Temporary external capacity handles peak usage while the normal workload remains in the controlled environment. The requirement is satisfied by matching the cloud capability to the seasonal e-commerce site's stated operating condition. The alternatives solve adjacent design or operational problems instead of the specific issue identified here. Question 3. The current proposal for Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site has a drawback: manually launching containers would not provide coordinated lifecycle management. The team still needs to schedule, scale, and recover containerized services across nodes. Which compute architecture should replace the proposal? Option A, immutable infrastructure. Option B, serverless computing. Option C, stateless application tier. Option D, a container orchestration. The correct answer is option D, container orchestration. An orchestration control plane manages desired state, placement, networking, and failed workload replacement. The design decision fits the seasonal e-commerce site because it targets the exact availability, security, deployment, or operational need described. The decision depends on the stated constraint rather than on selecting the most broadly familiar cloud technology. Stressed about your CompTIA exam? We can take CompTIA exam for you remotely and undetected. We always guarantee a pass and payments only after results. To send us an email, scan the code or tap the link in the description and let's get it done. Question 4. Engineers reviewing Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site describe the intended behavior as follows: non-relational stores support varied data models and high-scale access patterns when joins and rigid schemas are unnecessary. Which data-service choice does this description identify? Option A, file storage. Option B, NoSQL database. Option C, object storage. Option D, a read replica. The correct answer is option B, NoSQL database. The described behavior supports the requirement to scale flexible records or key-value access across distributed nodes. The requirement is satisfied by matching the cloud capability to the seasonal e-commerce site's stated operating condition. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that forcing rapidly changing records into a fixed relational structure would reduce flexibility. Question 5. For Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site, the team must encrypt traffic across an untrusted network between sites or users. It also wants to avoid a design where sending internal traffic directly across the internet would expose it. Which network architecture offers the most appropriate balance? Option A, a virtual private network. Option B, private subnet. Option C, a transit hub. Option D, dedicated private connection. The correct answer is option A, virtual private network. A protected tunnel provides confidentiality and integrity over public connectivity without requiring a dedicated circuit. For the seasonal e-commerce site, the governing factor is the requested behavior, and this approach provides it directly. The decision depends on the stated constraint rather than on selecting the most broadly familiar cloud technology. Question 6. Evergreen Retail is designing its seasonal e-commerce site. A key requirement is to maintain a fully provisioned secondary environment ready for rapid failover. Which recovery design provides the closest fit? Option A, recovery point objective. Option B, hot standby. Option C, backup and restore. Option D, multi-zone deployment. The correct answer is option B, hot standby. Active or immediately available capacity supports very low recovery time at a higher operating cost. The requirement is satisfied by matching the cloud capability to the seasonal e-commerce site's stated operating condition. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that building resources only after an outage would exceed the allowed downtime. Question 7. The current proposal for Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site has a drawback: unlabeled resources become difficult to govern and retire. The team still needs to define ownership, environment, cost, and lifecycle metadata. Which planning decision should replace the proposal? Option A: resource tagging strategy. Option B: service-level requirement. Option C: business impact analysis. Option D: capacity assessment. The correct answer is option A: resource tagging strategy. Consistent metadata supports cost allocation, automation, inventory, and policy enforcement. The choice is appropriate for Evergreen Retail because it acts on the requirement identified in the scenario, not merely on a related concern. Other options may be useful elsewhere, yet they do not provide the capability emphasized by this scenario. Question 8. During release planning for Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site, engineers are instructed to produce the same final state when executed repeatedly. Which provisioning practice should be implemented? Option A: idempotent automation. Option B: state locking. Option C: parameterization. Option D: bootstrap script. The correct answer is option A: idempotent automation. Safe repeat execution prevents duplicated resources and reduces recovery risk after partial failure. For Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site, that capability maps directly to the stated technical requirement. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that non-repeatable scripts may create additional objects or conflicting settings. Are you looking for CompTIA exam actual questions? Visit our website pokerexams.com to access CompTIA exam study guide with actual questions and answers. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get CompTIA exam answer key today. Question 9. For Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site, the team must keep a workload in its current environment for now. It also wants to avoid a design where forcing an unsuitable workload into the cloud could increase cost or disruption. Which migration approach offers the most appropriate balance? Option A: retain. Option B: retire. Option C: database replication cutover. Option D: replatform. The correct answer is option A: retain. A deliberate hold is appropriate when migration risk, licensing, latency, or dependency constraints outweigh current benefit. Applied within Evergreen Retail's environment, the approach resolves the central constraint without expanding the solution beyond its purpose. Other options may be useful elsewhere, yet they do not provide the capability emphasized by this scenario. Question 10. The design brief for Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site states that the environment must define a tested path to restore the prior stable state. Which release practice best meets the brief? Option A: blue-green deployment. Option B: rollback plan. Option C: rolling deployment. Option D: smoke test. The correct answer is option B: rollback plan. A rehearsed reversal procedure limits downtime when release criteria fail. The proposed use aligns with the workload constraint and supports a defensible vendor-neutral cloud decision. The nearby alternatives are less suitable because improvising recovery during an incident would increase delay and error. Question 11. Engineers reviewing Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site describe the intended behavior as follows: platform-issued workload identity reduces secret distribution and supports automatic credential rotation. Which configuration choice does this description identify? Option A: lifecycle policy. Option B: resource quota request. Option C: secrets manager. Option D: managed identity. The correct answer is option D: managed identity. The described behavior supports the requirement to allow a cloud workload to authenticate without stored long-lived credentials. Applied within Evergreen Retail's environment, the approach resolves the central constraint without expanding the solution beyond its purpose. Conversely, embedding static keys would create theft and rotation risks. Question 12. Prior to expanding Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site, administrators must compare current behavior with an established normal range. Which observability method should they use? Option A: metrics dashboard. Option B: distributed tracing. Option C: baseline analysis. Option D: alert threshold tuning. The correct answer is option C: baseline analysis. Historical norms help distinguish meaningful anomalies from expected daily or seasonal variation. This approach gives evergreen retail the required behavior while keeping the implementation aligned with the workload's actual demand. The nearby alternatives are less suitable because one isolated measurement lacks enough context for reliable interpretation. Question 13. Architects supporting evergreen retail's seasonal e-commerce site need the solution to match resource capacity to measured workload demand. Which optimization action should they choose? Option A, chargeback. Option B, scheduled shutdown. Option C, right-sizing. Option D, a spot capacity. The correct answer is option C, right-sizing. Utilization evidence supports selecting a more appropriate instance or service size without compromising required performance. Applied within evergreen retail's environment, the approach resolves the central constraint without expanding the solution beyond its purpose. Conversely, leaving chronically oversized resources unchanged wastes recurring spend. Question 14. The current proposal for evergreen retail's seasonal e-commerce site has a drawback: copies in the same region could share the outage. The team still needs to maintain recoverable data outside the primary geographic region. Which recovery operation should replace the proposal? Option A, across-region replication. Option B, retention policy. Option C, failover exercise. Option D, restore testing. The correct answer is option A, cross-region replication. Geographic copies protect against region-wide disruption and support regional disaster recovery. This approach gives evergreen retail the required behavior while keeping the implementation aligned with the workload's actual demand. A nearby concept would leave the central requirement unresolved even though it could improve another part of the environment. Question 15. Engineers reviewing evergreen retail's seasonal e-commerce site describe the intended behavior as follows: documented procedures improve consistency, reduce decision time, and support less-experienced responders. Which operational practice does this description identify? Option A, post-incident review. Option B, a certificate renewal automation. Option C, runbook. Option D, a configuration management database. The correct answer is option C, runbook. The described behavior supports the requirement to provide repeatable operational steps for routine events and incidents. In this scenario, the capability addresses the immediate design objective and avoids solving a different problem. By contrast, relying on individual memory creates variation and delays. Question 16. For evergreen retail's seasonal e-commerce site, the team must evaluate access using user, resource, environment, and action attributes. It also wants to avoid a design where static roles alone may not express the required contextual conditions. Which identity control offers the most appropriate balance? Option A, service account. Option B, attribute-based access control. Option C, multi-factor authentication. Option D, just -in-time privilege. The correct answer is option B, attribute-based access control. Policy decisions can adapt dynamically to contexts such as department, classification, device, or time. The proposed use aligns with the workload constraint and supports a defensible vendor-neutral cloud decision. A nearby concept would leave the central requirement unresolved even though it could improve another part of the environment. Question 17. For its seasonal e-commerce site, Evergreen Retail wants to centralize credentials, tokens, and sensitive configuration values. Which protection control is most appropriate? Option A, encryption at rest. Option B, secrets manager. Option C, certificate authority. Option D, tokenization. The correct answer is option B, secrets manager. Controlled retrieval, audit, encryption, and rotation reduce exposure compared with embedding secrets in code. In this scenario, the capability addresses the immediate design objective and avoids solving a different problem. By contrast, source repositories are not appropriate long-term secret stores. Question 18. The current proposal for Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site has a drawback: broad access based solely on being inside a network would be insufficient. The team still needs to verify identity, device, and context for each protected request. Which network security control should replace the proposal? Option A, microsegmentation. Option B, web application firewall. Option C, zero-trust access. Option D, private endpoint. The correct answer is option C, zero-trust access. Continuous explicit verification avoids assuming that network location alone establishes trust. For the seasonal e-commerce site, the governing factor is the requested behavior, and this approach provides it directly. The decision depends on the stated constraint rather than on selecting the most broadly familiar cloud technology. Stressed about your CompTIA exam? We can take CompTIA exam for you remotely and undetected. We always guarantee a pass and payments only after results. To send us an email, scan the code or tap the link in the description and let's get it done. Question 19. Before the next production change to Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site, the team must detect and restrict unauthorized movement of sensitive information. Which governance control should be prioritized? Option A, a retention schedule. Option B, policy as code. Option C, data masking. Option D, a data loss prevention. The correct answer is option D, data loss prevention. Content-aware controls can identify protected data leaving approved channels or destinations. The scenario calls for this capability because the seasonal e-commerce site depends on the specified behavior rather than a general cloud feature. By contrast, general firewall rules may not understand the data being transferred. Question 20. For Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site, the team must remove the underlying weakness after containing an incident. It also wants to avoid a design where restoring service without fixing the entry path would leave the risk. Which security response offers the most appropriate balance? Option A, root-cause remediation. Option B, a vulnerability scanning. Option C, security posture management. Option D, security information and event management. The correct answer is option A, root-cause remediation. Correcting the exploited condition prevents simple recurrence rather than only cleaning visible symptoms. The design decision fits the seasonal e-commerce site because it targets the exact availability, security, deployment, or operational need described. The decision depends on the stated constraint rather than on selecting the most broadly familiar cloud technology. Question 21. The current proposal for Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site has a drawback. Editing the production branch directly would bypass review and increase collision risk. The team still needs to isolate work until it is reviewed and ready to merge. Which DevOps practice should replace the proposal? Option A, artifact repository. Option B, continuous delivery. Option C, feature branch. Option D, pull request review. The correct answer is option C, feature branch. Separate branches support parallel development and controlled integration without destabilizing the mainline. The scenario calls for this capability because the seasonal e-commerce site depends on the specified behavior rather than a general cloud feature. The distractors are legitimate cloud techniques, but they address different requirements from the one being tested. Question 22. Engineers reviewing Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site describe the intended behavior as follows. Provider APIs enable consistent, scalable operations without depending on graphical interaction. Which automation practice does this description identify? Option A, event-driven workflow. Option B, policy validation in pipeline. Option C, declarative infrastructure as code. Option D, API-driven automation. The correct answer is option D, API-driven automation. The described behavior supports the requirement to manage cloud resources through documented programmatic interfaces. The design decision fits the seasonal e-commerce site because it targets the exact availability, security, deployment, or operational need described. A different choice would be weaker because manual clicking would be slower and less repeatable. Question 23. While diagnosing Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site, an administrator must determine whether the subnet has enough free addresses for new resources. Which troubleshooting action should be used next? Option A, measure packet loss and latency. Option B, inspect network access control rules. Option C, check domain name resolution. Option D, check address exhaustion. The correct answer is option D, check address exhaustion. Dynamic services cannot attach interfaces when the subnet pool is depleted. The requirement is satisfied by matching the cloud capability to the seasonal e-commerce site's stated operating condition. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that increasing CPU limits would not create network addresses. Question 24. A cloud incident involving Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site cannot be resolved until the team can identify swapping, out-of-memory termination, or cache eviction. Which diagnostic action should be prioritized? Option A, check service quota. Option B, measure storage latency and IOPS. Option C, inspect database connection limits. Option D, check memory pressure. The correct answer is option D, check memory pressure. Insufficient memory can cause severe latency or process failure even when processor use appears moderate. The design decision fits the seasonal e-commerce site because it targets the exact availability, security, deployment, or operational need described. A different choice would be weaker because increasing network bandwidth would not correct memory exhaustion. Question 25. A cloud incident involving Evergreen Retail's seasonal e-commerce site cannot be resolved until the team can identify the exact stage, command, and error that stopped automation. Which corrective action should be prioritized? Option A. Examine pipeline logs. Option B. Compare declared and actual state. Option C. Review monitoring coverage. Option D. Check credential expiration. The correct answer is option A. Examine pipeline logs. Stage-level evidence narrows the failure before any production changes are attempted. The requirement is satisfied by matching the cloud capability to the seasonal e-commerce site's stated operating condition. The main risk of choosing a different approach is that manually deploying around the pipeline would hide the root cause.